Hey, what's up everyone? This is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. Today is Friday, December 8th, 2017, and I'm back in Houston, Texas, here to talk tonight about some important stories that you need to know, as I always do here on the Conscious Resistance Live. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes, but before we do that, first I want to tell you a little bit about what you can expect from tonight's episode. I'm going to be talking about Google and CIA connections. Kind of an old story, but there's new updates to it that I think are worth discussing, and also asking whether or not we're willing to accept some of the realities of using the digital tools that have become a regular part of our lives. We're also going to talk about Standing Rock protest groups being sued by the Dakota Access Pipeline. We're going to talk about sexual harassment and sexual assault in Washington, D.C. We're going to talk about biometrics. And we'll also be discussing an American who is currently being held indefinitely for almost 3 months now by the Trump administration. Nobody knows who he is, what exactly he's being held, and what he hasn't been charged with anything yet. And slowly we're getting more and more information. And this is another important issue that's just being completely ignored by the deadstream media. And also a new poll says that apparently half the people on the earth believe in alien life. So we're going to talk all about that and much, much more tonight on the Conscious Resistance Live. And with that, go ahead and check this out. We'll be right back.
Got me wondering how I got into this mix. Mind playing tricks and I'm fiending for a fix. Habits overriding, imploding into explosion. Tapering away like ocean, coastal erosion. Bringing down falls like a Shakespeare tragedy. Expectation versus novelty and odyssey. Trusting the truth of my power like a battery. Showing a new way to each and every wagon sea. Imposing the impossible, surpassing every obstacle. Sailing with my voice until we all become unstoppable. Visionary depiction, blurring fact from fiction. Enriching perception with colorful depiction. Scales are tipping and I feel it in every nerve. Revolutionary like the birth of spoken word. Tuning my thoughts to the streams of the absurd. Walking on by to a new day I turn. Walking on, walking on, walking on, walking on, walking on. Walking on, walking on, walking on, walking on, walking on. Walking on by to a new day I turn. To the mountain of the fountain of the knowledge that I learned. Walking on by to a new day I turn. My true self dwelling in the clouds in the sky. Walking on, walking on, walking on by, on by, on by, on by, on by.
All right, welcome back to the Conscious Resistance Live, number 79, episode number 79. I've been doing this for going on 4 years, and I've only got as far as 79 episodes. But hey, what can you do? I stay very busy with my activist and journalist life, and I can't always be here every Friday evening talking to you guys about important issues. But hopefully you follow my work at the Conscious Resistance Network or some of the websites I write for, including the antimedia.org activist post, my partners at The Mind Unleashed, and of course my partners at Wake Up News as well. So if you don't see me here every week, just follow the pages, follow the websites, and you can keep yourself apprised of what's going on, news that you're not going to hear in the deadstream media that is going to inform you both as far as the physical fight against power and pushing back against those institutions, as well as trying to elevate ourselves spiritually, mentally, emotionally, to become the strongest, best versions of ourselves. And that's what this show here is all about. And tonight we're going to go through a few different topics, and I hope that you will go ahead and comment. I'll be responding to them. I've got my buddy Damon here listening and watching. Damon will help respond to any questions you have. And we're going to cover important issues that you need to know. I'm looking for tips and ideas from you about issues that matter to you. And also, we're going to discuss aliens. So all kinds of things going on. If you've never checked out my work before, you can follow me at derrickbroze.contently. That's contently.com. And you can follow all of my journalism. I write regularly for Activist Post, The Anti-Media, and Mint Press News. So at the moment, though, today we're going to be getting into a few different stories that I think are important and valuable. The first one I briefly mentioned has to do with Standing Rock groups protesting against the Dakota Access Pipeline throughout last year, now facing lawsuits from the Energy Transfer Partners company. Now, many of you who followed my work and followed for a while, you know that I was out there reporting for Activist Post and Mint Press News and live streaming for the Mind Unleashed in August and October, and then again in December when it was snowing. And I was there, during some of the hardest times when there was fires being set, and I was tased and pepper sprayed myself, and watched a lot of other people get abused and hurt at the hands of the police. And now the people behind this company, oil and gas company, is trying. It's not just the potential for oil spills, because as you guys I'm sure are well aware, the pipelines have burst. There's actually been we've had a spill from one of the Keystone pipelines recently. There was a smaller spill from the Dakota Access Pipeline before it actually even became operational. And yeah, right here they mentioned 5,000 barrel spill at Keystone Pipeline in South Dakota. So basically the companies are saying these activists are spreading propaganda, accusing us of potentially damaging the environment, so we're going to sue them. Their second argument says that Greenpeace and other activists are allegedly engaged in a vast illegal enterprise to persecute Energy Transfer Partners, and that they should be held liable for allegedly unlawful actions of unrelated groups. Basically, they're saying that Anonymous is actually a front for Greenpeace. Anonymous, the hacker collective online community, is a front for Greenpeace, and because Anonymous has targeted some of the Energy Transfer Partners' websites, that Greenpeace should be held accountable. So it's just a bunch of nonsense, and all this is meant to do is just to keep activists out there who can't really afford, typically, to defend themselves, to discourage them from expressing themselves and from going out there and standing in the way of projects and things that are that are not beneficial to the people overall. Check. Oh, is the audio back? Is the audio back on? Okay. Let me know if you can hear the audio. Thankfully, I'm recording this. If you can hear me indeed, go ahead and give me a thumbs up real quick. If you get a thumbs up, let me know you can hear me, and share this out if you haven't shared it out already. You can share it on your feeds, on your timelines. We're covering right now what I was just discussing was the Energy Transport Partners suing activists who have been fighting against the Dakota Access Pipeline. Big echo. How about that now? They are guilty of daylight robbery. All right, I changed one thing. Did that fix the echo? I'm gonna go ahead and give it a moment. Better? No echo? I should have fixed it. I'll wait for one more person saying we're good, and then we'll continue on. But cool, awesome, thank you. We're gonna continue on. So, the Energy Transfer Partners, this website, Standing Rock Protest Group, sued by Dakota Access Pipeline. You can find more about that. I'm going to go ahead and post these links. I will post them in the comments below. And if you guys got anything to say, just go for that, and I'll continue to read. But what's up, everybody? I do want to stop for a moment and say thanks to everybody who's been following the Conscious Resistance. I've been taking a social media break the last month and a half and working on lots of different things. And I actually just got back from Punta Mona in Costa Rica, a beautiful, intentional community, off-grid community. And before the end of the show, I'm going to show you guys some videos of that, because I think that might be inspiring to many of you to see what an intentional community looks like, and this beautiful place. If you've never heard of Punta Mona, I definitely want you guys to check that out. So we're going to talk more about that. But for now, let's cover some more news. I just talked about the Standing Rock. I guess you couldn't hear any of that, so oops. But just covered the Standing Rock lawsuits against the activists, and it's just another way for companies, oil and gas companies, and people with lots of money, big deep pockets like Energy Transfer Partners, to sue activists and discourage us from expressing ourselves and from going out to the street and literally putting your body on the line to defend the planet or to stop egregious acts of government. And that's what it comes down to, is these individuals trying to limit us, trying to destroy the planet, trying to limit our freedom in so many different ways. And eventually you have to ask yourself, well, for one, once you look at the external institutions and people, you can identify them. You can say, you are the people that are holding up progress of humanity. You guys are limiting us and keeping us from moving forward. But then at the same time, it's important to stop and think holistically and ask yourself, well, in which ways am I contributing to this problem? In which ways am I actually fueling this problem. So, for example, when it comes to oil and gas, lots of people going out there to fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline, and then we're using oil and gas products, and that's it's a hard one to get away from. They've created a monopoly through the state, and it's very difficult to get away from that, to avoid that, to not participate in it. But I do believe that there are efforts that can be made by each of us, that we can strive to get away from that system wherever possible and to limit our use of it. Whether we're talking oil and gas companies, talking the state itself, talking to mainstream, deadstream media, whatever area that you see a problem, Monsanto, Federal Reserve System, think holistically and ask yourself, how are you contributing to that problem? Because it is important. It was important for people to get up, and for indigenous communities, hundreds of communities and tribes and nations to come together for the first time in history from around the world and to come and stand together. Ultimately, the pipeline was built, right? It continues, but we came together and showed solidarity, and really it was a beautiful spiritual experience for me to be there, as well as an awesome journalistic experience, and very traumatizing. And you realize that these fights and struggles are taking place all over the world every day, and eventually we got to try to fight against them. We got to try to fight back. So what is that going to look like? I would say voting isn't going to fix it. I would say also this is another great example of why insurrection, the idea that we can just raise up and fight them hard enough and take them down, is going to win. I don't really see that being a possibility either. It's very difficult to imagine that succeeding, because they've got the guns, they've got the numbers, they've got the drones, they've got the biometric tech surveillance, all kinds of stuff like that. And it's unfortunate, but that's the situation we live in, and they are capable of some very dangerous activities. All right, well, let's move on to the next story. Well, I'm done rambling. This one I just finished up, just published right now in Activist Post, like literally 2 seconds ago. U.S. House considers changes to law that protects identities of politicians accused of sexual misconduct. Now, you guys may have heard about this recently, because there's been quite a focus lately on holding people accountable, whether we're talking actors in Hollywood or we're talking about politicians, for sexual allegations of sexual abuse, harassment. And now, if you really pay attention and you stay glued into our channel and our work, then this is not just some random occurrence of events. This is because there's a pervasive, sick culture in DC and in Hollywood and in the elite in a number of areas in our world, where children are targeted, where women are targeted, where there's some occult practices going on, definitely some sexual depravity. And I say this as somebody who's completely liberated and free, and think all people should have their own preferences when it comes to sex or whatever. But the reality is that these individuals, they live in a culture where they think that the power, the authority that they believe in and that they create for themselves gives them the ability to touch your body, or to tell you how to live your life, essentially. And so we have examples of this where it's just taking place all over the country and all over the world. And we found out recently, because of the interview that this woman right here, you can see in this video, Representative Jackie Spire, she gave an interview on MSNBC with Chuck Todd, talking about this program, which essentially in the last 10 years, now this is crazy, in the last 10 years alone, American taxpayers have paid $15 million to settle lawsuits regarding sexual assault allegations and sexual harassment allegations with politicians. So some politician out there in your community possibly gets accused of sexual harassment, sexual violation, and the people like you who are out there paying taxes via force, because if you don't pay them, they're going to take you and throw you away in cages. You have to go out there and fund this and pay for this. So there's some dirty old man or dirty old woman. I don't want to assume that it's all men doing it, but let's be clear. It's obviously a culture of men that are behind this and the political game. But men or women who assault somebody or harasses them, the victim comes in. The first thing they have to do is sign a non-disclosure agreement saying that they won't ever talk about this. They won't talk about the money. They won't talk about anything. And then they are paid off via the taxpayer, and we don't know anything about this. And in the last 10 years alone, this has cost American taxpayers $15 million. That means there's got to be quite a bit of harassment and sexual assault allegations going on behind the scenes. So Jackie Spire gave this interview to MSNBC, and it sparked some controversy, and now the House Administration Committee, which is led by Chairman Greg Harper, They held a committee hearing this past Thursday, just yesterday, discussing this, and they're hoping to make changes within the next couple of months, they say, to this bill or this law that's called the Congressional Accountability Act. It was passed in 1995, and this is the law that designates the non-disclosure agreement and how these harassment claims and workplace assault claims are handled. This is where the details of keeping this program were secret were created. So they're working to reform this, and I mean, who knows? Is anything going to come up with this? Will this change the policy? Will the American people ever get to know if the politicians they voted for or continue to support have been accused of harassment or abuse? I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath. We'll wait and see. But overall, I think that's a good thing that this is being discussed. You can check out this article here that just published on Activist Post a moment ago, and you can see the two videos, including the video if you want to watch the whole hearing from Thursday. It's about an hour and a half long. If you're interested in knowing the details, then that's worth your time. So check that one out. Yeah, definitely look into that, because as I said, this is a pervasive culture. It's not just like, okay, this is the one story related to it. No, this is going on all over the place. These people are sick. They need some help, and this is why we're out here trying to spread the awareness about it, because, well, I personally think that there's going to be a moment where each of us in the world who are striving for freedom, especially in the United States and other places, when we face, say, the oppressive rulers and the authoritarians who have dominated our lives and tried to control our lives, and we are given the option, do we become the monsters that we've been fighting and slit their throats and hang them from trees and abuse them and kill them violently? Will that solve our problems? Or do we choose to pursue a different path and maybe even try to forgive them and give them the opportunity to hold themselves accountable? Now, I know that sounds crazy, and there's plenty of you out there that are angry, and you're just like, what? No, we need to smash them and behead them and, whatever. But I don't think that's going to actually help us evolve in a spiritual, conscious manner. And when this website that you're tuned in right now is called The Conscious Resistance, people often ask me, I'll see them comment, what are you resisting? It doesn't really mean resisting in the sense of fighting and trying to, the way that you typically think about it. What it means to be conscious, aware, mindful, and to resist the systems of oppression and the systems of darkness that encourage division and they disempower individuals. To resist those institutions is to be mindful, to be aware. It's the moment that you recognize that your struggle for a more free, ethical, and beautiful and just world is not only one against the physical institutions of power in the corporations and in the governments of the world, but it's also a struggle against your own internal tyrant. It's that spiritual battle, that conscious battle that each of us fight on a daily basis. So the conscious resistance is about understanding both sides of that. And to me, that means when we are given the opportunity to become the new masters, so to speak, or to become the rulers, which is not what I'm after. I'm after decentralizing, breaking away, and opting out and creating a better world rather than trying to vote them out or fight them out. But when given that opportunity, when we are provided with the opportunity to hold these people accountable, and that day will come, we are going to have to make a choice. Do we choose to go down this dark road and, just give in to the violence and the anger and the aggression, or do we choose compassion? We choose to find a way to hold these people accountable, but to do it in a way that doesn't lower us to their level. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's just what I think, and I think that's probably going to be a better world that we'll create if we go down that path, as opposed to simply choosing violence and aggression and war and things of that sort. So let's get into the next story right here. This one just came out as well on Activist Post. I just finished these up right before the show. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement faces lawsuit over biometric data collection. Now, this is a type of story that we've kept up with for a while here on the show because I follow surveillance a lot. We're in a surveillance state in the United States, in case you haven't realized. And now the role of Donald Trump as president is to push and promote this fear of illegal immigrants and people invading our borders. So we need to have real strong borders. And, along with that, and possible legitimate arguments, along with that comes an increase in police state and surveillance state measures. So when they're talking about building this border wall, what they want to have is surveillance towers spread across the border wall. They want to have automatic license plate camera readers spread all across the border. They want to have retina scanners, and they're creating what they're calling a biometric wall that will be like facial recognition and retina scanning all along the freaking border. And in addition to that, they're giving the Border Patrol and Immigration Customs Enforcement more leeway and authority to create checkpoints far away from the border, as well as taking away people's laptops, taking away people's cell phones. And I'm not just talking about some random people. There's lawsuits going on right now involving like NASA engineers and people from all over the world, all different backgrounds and professions and religions who have been targeted and have their possessions stolen by the government, and they can't do anything about it. That is because we are living in a police state, and they are pushing this fear of immigrants and outsiders in order to trap us in. It's not about keeping people out. It's really just about control and domination. So that's why we follow these stories. And now this one is another lawsuit. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, is facing a lawsuit over the use of handheld devices which are used to gather biometric data during immigration raids. So on Tuesday, 2 organizations filed suit against the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for failing to release records related to the agency's use of devices which gather biometric data from immigrants. So essentially, whenever they conduct raids, like they're looking for illegal immigrants and people who have overstayed their welcome, they will raid the house, right, using whatever tools they have. And then they also have some sort of handheld device, which we know very little about. And they're either doing retina scanning or fingerprint scanning. And in this device, it scans them and it instantly provides them with access to a database of where these people are or who they are and who they're connected to. So it's just some scary technology, and we don't know much about it. The National Lawyers Guild's National Immigration Project have filed open records requests to try to get more information about this, and they filed them earlier in the year, and apparently the deadlines have now been passed by these organizations, these government institutions. They are not responding to the Freedom of Information Act requests, so now they are filing suit against them to try to force the court to get them to reveal what these devices do and just anything they can find about how these raids work. And as I wrote in this article, let me just read you this last little bit here. The actions of ICE are not only a threat to the liberty and privacy of immigrants, but to all Americans. Even if you believe there's nothing wrong with a bit of extra screening or vetting by the federal government, you should be willing to acknowledge that these programs will eventually be expanded and used on all Americans leaving or entering the country. In fact, back in September, Activist Post reported that attorneys with the Electronic Frontier Foundation and the American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit in defense of 10 U.S. citizens and 1 green card holder in response to warrantless searches at the U.S. border. So, what it comes down to is that they want to control every aspect of our lives, and they're going to sell that to you however they need to. If they need to keep you afraid of terrorism, keep you afraid of immigrants from another country, they're going to do it. It doesn't matter. They will do whatever they can to keep you afraid. And that article just came off of activistpost.com. Damon, if you want to grab that and share that link, that would be great. And I am reading the comments if anybody wants to comment on this. And again, if you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. Please feel free to share this out to your friends, anybody who you think would enjoy this. We've got about, 20, we'll do about 20 more minutes or 15 to 20 minutes. I've got a couple more stories to go through, including Google and the CIA, which you've got to hear this one. And just a couple more really important stories, and then we're going to end with a talk about aliens. Oh, and I want to show you a video of Punta Mona as well. So stay tuned, and there's still plenty to talk about and still plenty of time to share this out and get your friends involved. And also, if I haven't said this already, if you're listening, comment on the comments and let people know where you're listening from. If you're tuned in on the Conscious Resistance page, if you're tuned in on the Mind Unleashed page, wherever you're at, comment where you're listening from. And if you see people near you, connect with them. Try to start building local community in your area. Maybe you have common interests and goals. You can actually start to focus on solutions as opposed to just focusing on all these scary things that I'm talking about. So thank you guys if you participate in that. This next one is probably going to be the most important story that I want to talk about today, and I've been quiet. I've been keeping my eye on it now for a couple of weeks, and it's been going on for a couple of months. D.C. court hearing on Monday. The American Civil Liberties Union will challenge the detention of an American held by the U.S. for nearly 3 months. Now, I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. If you saw, I think the last show, you might have kept up with it, but there was. Basically, the American Civil Liberties Union is aware that there is an American citizen who has been arrested somewhere in Syria or turned over to Syrian authorities, or I don't want to mess up the details, but he was caught in the Middle East, right? He was accused of fighting for ISIS. We don't know that for certain, okay? And I guarantee you, I'm thinking if the United States fought or caught an ISIS fighter, and they were 100% certain that this person was fighting for ISIS and that they were an American citizen, you would think that they would in a way, celebrate it, that they would let everybody know, hey, we caught a terrorist. We actually did what we say we're going to do. And they didn't. They've kept it secret. In fact, the Trump administration has been fighting. They're trying to not let this guy get access to a lawyer. And it's really disturbing. So we're going to get into this a little bit further here. And I want to preface this again with saying, because I know that inevitably this is what I hear from some people, just like I heard on the last, I'm sure I'll hear on the last story. Well, if they would just follow the law and not be illegal immigrants, then they wouldn't get their fingerprints taken, or they wouldn't get house raided or whatever. But again, if you let this happen to one type of person, when they create a class of others, and they say, well, it's okay to happen to them, but I'm not going to stop it. I'm going to let their rights be violated. I'm going to let their freedoms be taken away because they're the bad guys, or they're violating the law, the rule of law and order. It's going to come for you as well. It's that sort of famous thought of, first they come for one group and you do nothing, then it just spreads and spreads until eventually they come for you and there's nobody else to do anything. So I'm sure some of you out there are saying, well, if this guy's fighting for ISIS, then let him rot in hell. Well, we should burn him alive, or I see all kinds of crazy things like this. And again, it's about which path are you going to take. Are you going to meet that same anger and violence with more anger and violence and hope that you can create a more peaceful world based on non-aggression, freedom, self-ownership, love, and these values that are universal? No, you're not going to be able to do that. Instead, you're going to meet that, I think, with something better. So we have no evidence that this guy actually fought for ISIS. That's just the story that the U.S. is saying. They're saying that he supposedly, possibly, may have fought for ISIS, and they won't even give him access to a lawyer. Apparently, the only group that has had access to him, was the Red Cross, and the Red Cross is just there to make sure he's alive and they haven't killed him. Well, they haven't killed him at least yet, but I'm sure he's being tortured and not treated very well. But they won't let the ACLU get access to him in order to, provide him with an attorney before they get all kinds of information out of him. Instead, the federal government is fighting this, and this is the Trump administration. I'm definitely willing to say that these kind of things have happened during the Obama administration and the Bush administration, but this is definitely happening under the Trump administration. This man is being held indefinitely. This could be a part of the National Defense Authorization Act, which was passed. It's passed every year. It's the military budget, but in 2011, the Obama administration passed it with two very controversial and dangerous sections, Section 1022 and 1021, which had to do with indefinite detainment of American citizens suspected of terrorism. So this could be an example of somebody being indefinitely held without access to a trial, without access to lawyers or to a jury or any of their peers, and they won't give any information up. Well, the battle now, it may be changing. The ACLU is saying that now on Monday there will be a hearing, and the U.S. government is going to have to justify why they are not giving this man access to a lawyer, and why they're just basically holding him indefinitely. And hopefully something will come out of this, and this man will be let free, because otherwise, I don't know. I feel like it's inevitable one way or the other, but otherwise it's going to set some pretty dangerous precedents in this country. And I mean, it's already taking place. In case you didn't know, the American government can indefinitely detain you. And maybe you're listening from another country, which I know we get a lot of international listeners. I would say that you'd be hard-pressed to find a government that doesn't want these kind of powers and that doesn't want to go after, to control and dominate their people. I've definitely done a little bit of research and found some countries that seem to be relatively free, and maybe more free in the United States in some ways, especially these days. But overall, I think that governments and people in power, especially at the level of power we're dealing with, the United States, Russia, and China, just massive budgets, millions, billions, trillions of dollars, and the ability to control and have so much access to people's information. It's difficult to see that not coalescing into something where power corrupts. And when power corrupts people, they will do whatever they can to stay in control. Now, speaking of putting all of our information in one place, I just saw John mention DuckDuckGo. How many of you out there are aware of other search engines beyond Google? Can you name one? Other than, okay, Yahoo, maybe Yahoo, right? But Yahoo has handed your information over to the U.S. government as well before in the past. Bing, Microsoft Bing, right? That's a horrible one. What other search engines can you mention? Most people can't even mention or think of another search engine beyond Google because it's become such a regular part of our vocabulary. We just say Google it, just Google it, right? It's become its own, it's a verb now. It's something, it's an action that you do, a made-up word that they created. The name of this company is now a verb that we use on a regular basis. And it's not an accident, I would say. I think this is by design. And some really great journalism here coming from QZ.com. In this article titled, Google's True Origin Partly Lies in the CIA and NSA Research Grants for Mass Surveillance. Now, some of this information in here has been revealed in the past. I'm going to show you a little bit of this. But there's definitely some new information that is going on within here. And essentially what we have is two of the founders of what would become Google. What they created was an algorithm to search mass amounts of data and to feed back information about it. So they wanted to be able to look at huge data sets, say the whole internet, and have somebody be able to search that and bring them back information. It's what we know as Google and what we know as the search engine today, and how great it works, right? Well, what you have to understand is this process didn't come by accident. It didn't just randomly happen. The two men behind it were working in universities. They were university students, and they ended up taking grants that came from several different United States federal government agencies, including the NSA, the National Security Agency, which we all know is responsible for surveying on people not just in the United States but all over the world, internet traffic, telephone traffic, cell phone, and on. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects, which is part of the Pentagon, and that's where they do all kinds of crazy things like robot drones and what other kind of things have we seen from DARPA? Oh, there's that one, the Jaguar. Have you guys seen that? The drone Jaguar, where it's like this robot's going to chase you down the street. Yeah. Well, DARPA's where they have all the kind of crazy projects, right? So the two guys from Google ended up taking grant money from these institutions, and that money ended up helping them create the algorithms, right? So you could say indirectly the NSA and the CIA and DARPA did help fund what became Google and what we use on a regular basis. Now, what would the purpose of this be? Well, these men were trying to come up with something really interesting, something valuable, something useful, something lucrative, like the search queries and what they did with Google. At the same time, the NSA and the CIA, the reason they were putting these grants out, they didn't just provide money for smart, intelligent computer scientists for no reason. They had their own goals. They had their own ambition. This is why I think that there's some ethical questions with taking money from the government. Individuals out there who are, I've met all kinds of people who are involved in computers and different areas of tech and science who say that at a very young age they were approached by government employees, government officials, and who tried to recruit them. And basically what you get access to is a huge budget and lots of toys for you to play with to explore the work that you're interested in. But I think we have to ask ourselves, what is the effect of doing that? Yeah, maybe you get a big budget and you get to play with the science and the area that you're interested in, but where is it going to go to? Is it going to end up being used by the government for something nefarious? And I think researchers and scientists and many intelligent people out there need to think about that and ask themselves, what is the cost of what you're doing and getting to create the toys that you want? Are you willing to stand with the people or take the money from the government no matter where it goes? I think that's really, we have to ask ourselves about that. So I just want to read this one section right here. You can see that Google has said in the past that it was not funded or created by the CIA. For instance, when stories in 2006 circulated that Google had received funding from the intelligence community for years to assist in counterterrorism efforts, the company told Wired magazine founder John Battelle the statements related to Google are completely untrue. Now this is the key part here. Did the CIA fund the work of Brin and Page, the guys who founded Google, and therefore create Google? No. But were they researching precisely what the NSA, the CIA, and the intelligence community hoped for, assisted by their grants? Absolutely. To understand the significance, you have to consider what the intelligence community was trying to achieve as it ceded grants to the best computer science minds in academia. The CIA and the NSA funded an unclassified compartmentalized program designed from its inception to spur the development of something that looks almost exactly like Google. So they're planting seeds with their money, hoping that if they gave the right people, they would create this massive tool that could allow them to search bits of information and use that for surveillance purposes and use it for whatever reasons they want. They specifically wanted to get into the tech industry, into Silicon Valley, and to fund private individuals and use that to create companies that could help filter out tools and ideas that would go mainstream and then also help contribute to their surveillance programs. What this makes me think is that yes, the internet is a beautiful tool, Google is a beautiful tool, search engines are great, but we have to understand that these tools were made with the government in mind, thinking, wow, we can get the people using this, we can create private companies, the companies will make millions and billions of dollars, and we can use this to access their information whenever we want. It's very scary. And I've also done more research lately and understand that cellular technology as well, the technology that underpins all of modern cell phones, the origins of that technology as well was also to track. It was GPS, it was location tracking. And other areas of research, you can see that it started out with the state in mind and with control again in mind, not about necessarily freeing the people or liberating the masses. So we have to understand that, because these are double-edged tools, double-edged swords. Obviously I'm sitting there broadcasting to you guys right now using the beauty of technology and the internet and these tools, and I'm on one of my computers I'm using Chrome, so Google is tracking everything I'm using here. What are the options we have? You have DuckDuckGo, you have Tor, the Tor browser, the deep web. You have a completely different internet out there that allows you to search and do it in a way that's protected. There are plenty of companies that will not share your email with the state. There are plenty of companies that won't share your search engines. You just have to do a little bit of extra work. And I think generally that goes to this idea that we should stop accepting what the mainstream, the dead stream feeds us. In the dead stream, there's There's music that is really not of any value. It's just promoting partying and being soulless and mindless, right? And then you have music and movies, and the culture in general of the mainstream, I think, is generally kind of just flat and boring and dead. It's not about promoting the individual and pushing the individual to elevate themselves and to grow and to be the best version of themselves. It's really this flaccid, disturbingly weak representation of what humanity could be. And I feel like that's all areas, right? So that means the mainstream search engines, the mainstream music, the mainstream TV, the mainstream, all that stuff, look deeper than that. So don't just rely on Google. Look out there. Look up DuckDuckGo. Look up some of the others. There's plenty more out there. If you do just a little bit of research, you might have to start searching on Google if you don't know any others, and then you can search and go get into DuckDuckGo, get into some of these other tools that allow you to search the internet that they don't. The other thing, just as an aside, and we're done, we're moving on to the last topics here, is that Google wants to de-rank what they consider to be fake news, right? And we have to be increasingly skeptical of what is fake news. It's just whatever the establishment doesn't want us to think about or doesn't want us to look at. If we're supporting those systems, we're not thinking holistically. We can talk about how we're against surveillance, we're against the we're against the increasingly interconnected world, the bad sides of it, because obviously there's beauty that I can broadcast through the internet and talk to people all around the world and connect and make new friends, and that's great. But the other side is that, yeah, everything's being tracked. We need to think about that. Last couple of stories here. This one's important. It's actually some good news. Some of you may remember the name Walter Scott, who is a man who was murdered a couple of years ago by a police officer. And of course, like many of these things, it was all caught on video. And most of us were pretty skeptical of whether or not anything was going to happen or not. But today we have new news that the man who killed this Walter Scott, shot him in the back. The cop has been sentenced to 20 years in prison. Now, that doesn't happen that often, so that's, I think, a very good win for people everywhere. Last December, the trial of Michael Slager, who shot and killed Walter Scott in the back as he ran away on video, tragically ended in a mistrial. Many people thought that this would lead to the killer cop getting off scot-free. However, after pleading guilty in May to violating Scott's civil rights, Slager has just been sentenced to 20 years in prison for murder. The U.S. District Judge David Norton made the ruling after saying he would follow sentencing guidelines to send Slager to prison for 19 to 24 years. The officer could have faced life in prison. The judge ruled that he committed second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. So the whole thing started whenever he pulled Walter Scott over for a taillight infraction, and it escalated, and he ends up basically, I'll show you, I don't know if you guys can see the picture here, Walter Scott ends up running away, and the picture you're seeing right here, the image, the only reason this was caught is because some good Samaritan across the street decided to do some cop watching, some cop filming. And think about this. Every time that you're somewhere and you see somebody getting harassed by a cop and maybe you get an uneasy feeling, you're like, oh man, I hope that guy goes home okay, or that maybe you're thinking both. I hope everybody goes home okay, right? That the cop makes it home okay, that he's not harassing somebody, for no reason, and that the person being pulled over makes it home okay. But at the end of the day, sometimes people don't make it. People get killed by cops for stupid reasons like this. This guy got straight up executed, shot in the back, and somebody decided to take the time out of their day to film it. And the cop didn't know they were there. This person was just filming from across the street, and they got the entire murder on camera, and that actually provided some justice. There's been other times, like Eric Garner and other cases, where the cops were also caught on camera, but nothing happened. Nothing came of it, and that sucks. It's really disturbing. It's bad. It's not good. But today we have at least something to celebrate. This cop will be held accountable for murdering another man, and he's going to have to do 20 years in prison. Maybe that can be the time he needs to change. I don't know. I don't really think that prisons are a place for rehabilitation. Having spent a short amount of time in prison institutions, I know that they're really not designed to actually rehabilitate people. So I don't have much hope that that place will provide the healing the man needs, but hopefully he can use his time in the best way possible and get to figure out, what went wrong there. It could have been the cops reinforcing this idea that cops need to be executioners on the streets. It could be a lot of different things, man. There could be deeper roots to why this happened. Yeah, so now we're getting here to the end, guys. Thank you so much for following today. I do this show. I'm going to be back now, pretty much. We're nearing the end of the year doing this show every Friday. We had I saw a couple of frames skipped, but for the most part, yeah, it was happening when I was talking about Google. Sorry, Google. We're going to keep talking bad about you and revealing you for the liars, the cheats, the thieves, and the voyeurs that you are. And we're going to promote better tools. So that's just how it's going to go. But beyond that, the show is going to be back every Friday from 5:30 p.m. right here on the Conscious Resistance Network on the Mind Unleashed, and then it'll be posted on our YouTube channel, The Conscious Resistance. I will be bringing my personal profile back to Facebook in 2018, but right now I'm working on some new writing projects and a couple of different things. So stay tuned for all that. Lots of exciting things. And I have one more story here that I want to show you. Check this out. What do you guys think? Do you believe? Check this one out. It says that half of humans believe in alien life. Nearly half of humans believe in alien life and want to make contact. A survey in 24 countries has found what researchers said helps to explain the lasting popularity of the Star Wars franchise 40 years after it first screened. 61% of people said yes when asked if they believe in some form of life on other planets. Roughly a quarter said they do not believe intelligence life exists beyond Earth. Among those who believe that we are not alone in the universe, 60% said we should try to seek contact with alien civilizations. So yeah, what do you think about that, guys? Are you one of the believers? Do you think that there is alien life out there? I think it's pretty obvious there has to be other life forms out there beyond just us and what we're doing here. I've always been, and I posted this earlier on Facebook on the Conscious Resistance page, UFOs and aliens and that sort of field of research and the science behind it and the potentials. It's been an interest to me since I was a child, and I'm still interested, still really curious about it, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. So let me know in the comments below. As I was saying, though, I'm doing the show every Friday. Please follow, please subscribe. If you enjoy what we do here, you can follow us directly on theconsciousresistance.com. And if you ever feel like you want to support my work a little bit more directly, you can consider signing up on patreon.com/Derrick Broze right here and help me get to the point of doing more work. I post exclusive videos here on my Patreon account for people who support me on a monthly basis, and that allows me to go visit places like Standing Rock. It allows me to go visit places like the Apache Stronghold in Arizona. It allows me to go document all kind of important issues, including one here that I want to show you guys, Punta Mona in Costa Rica, which is a really beautiful place that I mentioned earlier. I just got to visit, and I was able to document and stay at this intentional community that if you haven't seen it, go to puntamona.org. But I'm going to see if I can show you guys a quick video, and then I'm done for the night. I just want to show you just a preview of what this place is like. I think you'll enjoy it. Well, it's not working at the moment, but check out the Mind Unleashed on Facebook. Go look at their videos, and we will check that out. Let me see some of the comments. They are here now. I think that they are here now, the aliens. Share a link for the new members. Patreon.com/Derrick Broze. Damon, if you don't mind posting that. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out while the hiccups and the new changes and just listening for me talking tonight about all the important news. And if you want to catch up on the news, please do check out the links below. Follow me on Twitter at dbrozelivefree. I'm also on steemit.com/@dbroze. Damon, if you don't mind posting those links for everybody, please do so. And if you want to get in touch with me, if you need help getting involved in your local community and trying to build freedom cells, trying to build activist networks in your community, please contact me at derrick@theconsciousresistance.com. We're doing a lot of work coming up to try to reach people and expand our network. It's growing. We're going to be showing people how to grow their own food, how to unplug, how to decentralize and opt out from systems that don't represent us, and actually building the next stage of humanity based on universal values and getting away from these systems. So if that sounds interesting to you, please follow us, stay tuned, and get in touch. Thank you for listening tonight. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.